Today's program is being sponsored by Senator Ed Harbison, re-elect Ed Harbison, Senate District 15, and Greg Countryman, candidate for Sheriff of Muskogee County.
Inspirational, informative, empowering. Introducing CEL TV, the Courier Echo Latino newspaper's new network, offering exciting and relevant programming. Featuring Politically Speaking in Black and Brown with Dominic Perkins, On the Scene with Nadine, Money and Business with Carl Brown, Extraordinary Intentions with Jonathan Rivers, Ask a Lawyer with Katanga Wright, Legislative Updates with State Representative Carolyn Hughley, K-Pasa with Tanya Batchelor, and of course, A View from a Pew with Wayne A. Hales, and so much more. And now, your host, President and Publisher of the Courier Echo Latino newspaper, Wayne A. Hales.
Thank you for joining us. As we continue to shelter in place, our publication, the Courier Echo Latino newspaper, has taken to various social media outlets to provide a platform that allows us to continue reaching our trusted readers. Those readers have come to rely on us for their source of information. With the launching of CEL TV, we can say mission accomplished. We are proud to announce that after just one broadcast, we not only have continued reaching our valued customers, but have been introduced for the first time to a whole new demographic who use social media as their source for news. If you've been with us from the beginning, these past 15 years, we say thank you for your support. If you are just being introduced to us through CEL TV, we welcome you to the Courier Echo Latino family. Our mission, as your source for truth, is to always inspire, inform, and empower you. Please like us on Facebook, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and remember to visit our website at www.couriernews.org for special discounts from our advertisers. Today, we will be talking with our very own Congressman Sanford D. Bishop, representing the 2nd Congressional District. We'll ask him about the small business loans, PPP, and his opinion on when the country might get back to normal. Plus, Nancy Boren will stop by to share with us the latest information regarding the upcoming primary election June 9th during this coronavirus pandemic. But first up, when we return, we get a COVID-19 update from Pamela Kirkland, the Public Relations and Information Coordinator with the West Central Georgia Health District. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Elect Greg Countryman for Muskogee County Sheriff. Vote Greg Countryman, June 9th, 2020. Oh, well, welcome. Pamela, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. Now, we're going to talk back. I know we've, since mid-March, with our new, since we've been dealing with the coronavirus, we want to talk a little bit about what's going on, about our new normal. And basically, it has consisted of social distancing, wearing face masks, and sheltering in place. And with close to 60,000 deaths nationwide as a result of COVID-19, we felt it important to come to you locally to find out what's really going on right here in Muskogee County and how it has affected or infected our area. So, Ms. Kirkland, as the Public Relations and Information Coordinator of the West Central Georgia District, tell us, how many confirmed cases of the coronavirus are there in Muskogee County?
Today's count had us at 302 positive cases and 7 deaths in Muskogee County. So we're not at the top end, but we're not at the low end either.
Okay. So now, and I know there have been some survivors. So how many do you know? Do you keep a record of that?
We don't have a count of the cases that have resolved, either people who just didn't, tested positive but did not have symptoms, or those that were ill or in the hospital and then got better. Those, unfortunately, we won't really have a good idea of those until possibly later on in the year.
So are you seeing a decline in our cases here?
Well, in Columbus, in Muskogee County, we've had just a few that come in every day. We haven't had any large numbers of change overnight, as in some of the counties, and I think that's a good thing. Our death rate is pretty low for the amount of people that have tested positive. So, some of the counties we're seeing no increase, and some of the counties we're seeing a little higher increase than we have here. We have 16 counties in our district.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, most of us, if you listen around the country, a lot of the cities are talking about African Americans and minorities, that it seems to be affecting them at a larger rate. How do you see that in Muskogee County, and is there a number that you can come up with that is there now?
We don't have an exact number for Muskogee County. We do have some numbers for the state as a whole, and there's about 40% of the cases are African American. We have 26,000 altogether, and of that 26,000, 40% is roughly about 9,500 cases that are African Americans.
Okay, okay. Where can people be tested? And let me ask you this question. We understand that you all are testing. So where are some of the places that can be tested, and do you have enough tests to go around for everyone in Muskogee County?
Right now, we're getting more test kits in, so we do have enough tests to test all the people who are feeling sick. And we do test first responders and critical infrastructure workers and people who are healthcare workers if they are asymptomatic. That means if they don't have any symptoms, they can be tested. But for the general population, we are testing people who are sick, who are not feeling well. They just have to have symptoms. And we are testing at every county in our district. Now, in Columbus, we test every day from 8:30 to 5 behind the Columbus Health Department at 2100 Comer Avenue. So it's all drive up. We can help people who walk up who don't have a car, but mostly it's drive up, and you don't have to get out of your car. And then we also have testing at different days and times at our 15 counties in in our district. And those times and days are on our website, westcentralhealthdistrict.com.
So now you are sort of on the front lines. We know the governor has stated that he wants to, I guess, rescind some of the practices that we've been going through. What do you say as being one on the front lines and seeing these people coming? Although our numbers aren't as large as some places like Albany, what's your view? What do you believe we should be doing?
Well, I think we all need to keep doing the CDC recommendations. We need to stay at home as much as we can, even though he has lifted some of the restrictions. We need to wear masks if we go out, and be sure to wash your hands when you come home, and several times a day for at least 20 seconds. We also need to keep social distancing, and that's staying 6 feet apart from someone else, like in a store, if you have to go to the grocery store, or if you are in a situation where you are working, keep that distance from your other coworkers. But I certainly hope that people will be responsible and not feel like because he has lifted some of the restrictions that it's, we're good to go and everybody's, back to normal and that kind of thing. I think we still need to be very conscious of the people with chronic medical conditions and also elderly in our community that would have more of a difficult time overcoming the coronavirus.
We're taking questions live. Janice Granville from Columbus, Georgia wants to know, how long does it take to get the results?
We're running about 2 to 3 days right now, which has been a big improvement from when we first started. It was about 5 to 7 days. So now it's about 2 to 3 days. And it is a nasal swab. and the nurses will do that on everybody. They triage everybody when they first come in, and then they have have the swab done at a second tent in our outdoor facility.
Now, I'm sort of queasy. This isn't a needle. This is just a swab. Does it hurt? Next question.
Well, it goes pretty far back there. Goes up the nose and into the back of the throat. So
Okay.
it's uncomfortable, but if you're sick and you want to find out if you have this, then that's something you just do it. It doesn't take long at all to get that swab done.
Well, you're right, because they say a drowning man doesn't care who throws my lifeline. Joseph Young wants to know, do you have any plans for the inmates in Columbus, Georgia? Are you involved in that?
No, we're not involved in that. I believe the federal government is handling that, or the state on a state level. But I do want to mention to everybody that Saturday and Sunday this week, we are going to be doing a testing site at Dorothy Height Elementary School, which is located 1438 Benning Drive, right around the corner from Walmart. And it's going to be Saturday from 9 to 2 and Sunday from 12 to 2. So if you haven't been able to get to the Midtown location here and have a test done and you're not feeling well, you can go to the Dorothy Height Elementary School and have it done this weekend. It's also going to be outside, so it'll be a drive-up style, just like we do here. You won't have to get out of your car. But if you don't have a car and you walk up, we will be able to give you a test. Just have to make sure that, we don't want anybody to get, run over or anything like that. So we might have a different entrance for people to use if they're walking. So, but we want everybody to come out. If you have any kind of symptoms and you want to be tested, you can come out. It's for Georgia residents only, and it is no charge.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Anything else you want to share to the community about what you all are doing and the steps that you are taking? Pamela, can you hear me? Is there anything else you want to discuss?
Well, if anybody has any questions, they can call 706-321-6300.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Did you get that?
We got it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been talking with Pamela Kirkland with the West Central Georgia Health District. As she said, she gave out the number, and we'll put that up on our Facebook page. Keep it right here. When we come back, we're going to be sitting down with Congressman Sanford Bishop. We'll be right back after these messages. We elect Kathy Williams, District 7 for Muskogee County School Board. KathyForTheKids.com. Kathy Williams, for our kids. Welcome back. As promised, we have with us Congressman Sanford D. Bishop. He is the representative from the 2nd Congressional District. Welcome, Congressman. How are you doing?
Listen, I'm doing as well as I can be expected. I say blessed and highly favored because we're up to our elbows in snapping alligators named COVID-19.
All right. Well, you're from this district, but you are chairing a committee and you are involved in some subcommittees. Can you share with us what those are?
Yes, I'm fortunate that the people of the 2nd Congressional District have allowed me to serve to the point where I've been able to get a seat on the Appropriations Committee, and my seniority has allowed me to assume the position of chairman of the Agriculture, Rural Development, and Food and Drug Administration Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. We fund all of the funding for the United States Department of Agriculture, which has our nutrition program, school lunch program, the WIC program, the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and the Temporary Food Assistance Program, TFAP, which helps our food banks. So all of the nutrition programs come through USDA. We also fund in our subcommittee the Federal Drug Administration, which is right in the middle of this coronavirus. They have the responsibility for making sure that our food is safe, but also that our drugs and our medical devices are safe and that we have adequate inventory and supply. Of course, that's one of their responsibilities, and they're right in the middle of this crisis. And we, of course, have been appropriating funds to make sure that they can carry out their mission. And of course, I serve also on the subcommittee of Military Construction Veterans Affairs, which funds all of the Department of Defense military construction except that for the Corps of Engineers, and it funds the entire Veterans Affairs Department. And of course, the third subcommittee I serve on is Financial Services, which deals with all of the financial institutions, including those like TSYS, global systems that do the financial transactions. And Georgia is now Transaction Alley. Every credit card processing in this country goes through some transaction center, and Georgia has about a third of the financial transactions that take place in the United States.
All right. Well, you're the perfect person to talk to about all these questions we have for you today. Now, the whole country is concerned about getting back to normal, but of course, that's going to depend on the economy going again. Many small businesses, such as mine, we're having difficulty getting funding that's supposed to be earmarked for us. Can you tell us what's being done to fix that? I know we're not the only ones. All over the country, people are complaining that a lot of the larger companies, although from my understanding, it's not illegal for them to receive some of these small business funding because they meet the guidelines. But what are they doing to fix that so the little guys, the real little guys, can get some of this money?
Well, as a result of the forced sheltering in place to protect our communities from community spread of the virus, and many of our communities have been devastated, like the Southwest Georgia communities in Albany, it has impacted our economy drastically. We've got some 30 million people that are on unemployment now because they can't go to work, or they haven't been able to go to work, and they've lost that income. And so a part of that, in order the effort that Congress has put in place to try to keep employers from having to lay off employees, was the Paycheck Protection Program, for which we appropriated $349 billion to support employers so that they would be able to continue keeping their employees on the payroll if they promised to do that for a certain period of time and brought them back to work as soon as they could. Well, that money was so drastically needed that it overwhelmed the Small Business Administration. One, there were more people that needed the loans than the $349 billion that was allocated by Congress, which was an emergency, which was done in 48 hours. Secondly, the people who were able to get those processed were people who had good banking relationships already. Small business covers businesses up to 499 employees. So many of the on the larger end of those small businesses, not your mom and pops, not your barbers and beauty shops, right, not your flower shops, but larger businesses who had those banking relationships, they were able to have a greased path through their lenders, the big lenders, to be able to get that money and to suck it up, if you will, very quickly. Which meant that a lot of the small businesses, doctors, dentists, mom and pop flower shops, restaurant owners, were not able to get their loans processed. And so the money ran out before their loans were able to be processed. And of course, the Small Business Administration had never faced a situation like this. They were overwhelmed. They had to do as many loans in a month as they had been doing over a 2-year period, which caused that system to crash. And a lot of the smaller lenders who had not done a lot of those loans over a period of time had been removed from the system. So they had to be reprogrammed into the system, which took about 4 or 5 days to get done. By that time, the money was gone. As a result, Congress had to come back to try to replenish that fund. The Republicans, Mitch McConnell, asked that we appropriate another $250 billion to replenish that fund so that additional businesses could get it. But we recognized and we heard from small businesses, from minority businesses, that they had not been able to participate. And so we said, wait a minute, we need to attach some strings to this. We're not going to just give $250 billion to go out the same way the first $349 billion did. We're going to attach some strings to it, and we're going to try to put some additional resources there. So in addition to the $250 billion that Mitch McConnell was asking Congress to do another blank check for, we added another 60 billion. We raised that to 310 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program for those businesses that got missed, and we included additional $60 billion targeted to small lenders, state and federal credit unions, community development financial institutions, minority depository institutions, micro lenders, so that they could target the people who had been missed. And of course, we set aside that money limited to the smaller financial institutions like community banks in some of our rural areas, as well as some of the micro lenders. We allocated that so that they were institutions that had assets between $10 billion and under, had half of that 60 billion allocated to them. Those that had assets between 10 billion and 50 billion, which is the max of the small businesses jurisdiction, were able to draw from that. But that was to include all of those folks like your small business and the mom and pop beauty shops, flower shops, and other small restaurants and other small businesses, dentists, doctors, so that they could be able to participate. The object of this is to try to keep people employed. And more people are employed by small businesses in the United States than by all of the large businesses and industries combined. So we want to keep people working to the extent that we can and get those 30 billion people who are on unemployment back to work. So that's what that was targeted for. But in addition, we recognize that there were some other folks that were impacted that needed to be helped immediately. For example, our hospitals. Many of our hospitals have been overwhelmed in treating the COVID-19 patients. We've had tremendous numbers of deaths. We've had people that were in critical condition, in ICU, on ventilators, and of course that taxed the resources of the hospitals. And because of the crisis, the hospitals had to forego accepting any elective surgeries where most of them are able to make money. And of course, by losing that revenue, they're losing, but then they're also incurring additional expenses with the coronavirus victims. And so we recognized that the hospitals needed some help. And so we included in that $75 billion to help hospitals pay for the extra expenses they had in treating patients, and also to give them some recovery for the loss that they have suffered in revenue from not being able to do the elective surgeries. The object is to make sure that anybody who is a coronavirus victim is able to get treated with or without health insurance. So that was $75 billion that we put into that. We wanted to put $100 billion into that. The Democrats did. The Republicans didn't want to put anything. They said, let's wait later to do that. They ended up compromising over the 2 weeks before we passed that bill for $75 billion. Another key figure in this was for testing. We wanted the economy to get back, but we cannot go back to normal with our economy without knowing that people leaving their sheltering in place and going out into the marketplace would not spread the virus. And so to do that, to be sure, you need to have testing. Our testing in Georgia was far short of what it needed to be. The testing across the country has been far short of what it needed to be. So it was not possible to be able to go back safely without having widespread testing. And so we've been very concerned about those governors who were wanting to send us back to open the economy back up without first assuring that there's adequate testing and that there's tracing. You got to separate the people who have the virus from those who don't, be able to get them treatment, and be able to protect the public from those who are carriers who are asymptomatic. That is, who don't show the symptoms but have the virus, because they too can transmit the virus. So as a consequence, we put $25 billion in there targeted for testing. And that testing is also being targeted to the communities where there's the most need. Hotbeds, for example, Albany and Southwest Georgia. Money in that $25 billion was set aside to make sure that anybody could be tested in those hot areas, and that was money specifically allocated for that with a priority. Also for general community-wide testing, so that everybody in the United States would ultimately be able to get a test, which would assure that if we went back into the economy, that we had some sense of what the extent of the virus was, who had it, and they could be separated. They could also be treated with the additional funds that we provided. This was what the purpose was, and of course, testing, tracing, being able to isolate before going back into the economy is extremely important. So that's where we are, and that's what we're trying to do. But of course, prior to getting to the business aspects of it, we were concerned with the health aspects of it and the personal family losses regarding. So the Families First was the first package that we put together. One that was to help people that were laid off due to unemployment. So we did the unemployment benefits. We also had people who were not necessarily employed, but who lost income. And of course, that was the stimulus package, which was $1,200 per individual, $2,400 if they filed jointly, plus $500 per child under the age of 17. So that was a temporary income boost for people who had been out of work. At that time, it was just 2 or 3 weeks. Of course, we expect that people will have bills coming up. They will need some additional. And so now Congress is considering an additional round of stimulus payments. But that first was the unemployment, it was the stimulus payments, and then the Paycheck Protection Program, and then the emergency injury disaster loans, which will go to businesses to help them to be able to make that payroll and to continue whatever their expenses were, so that they would be able to be around when we were able to open the economy back up again. So that's what we are concerned with now. We're afraid that if we go back too soon, and some of the states are going back very, very quickly, that it could result in a second round of the virus, which we are told by the health people would be even more deadly than the first one. So we want to get this right. We want to go back. We want to open the economy. We're tired of sheltering in place, but we also want to be safe. And the economy should not be a sellout simply when we have the public health and safety at risk. We need to do them both. They're inextricably intertwined, because you can't have a healthy economy if you got a lot of sick people going around, because it's going to worsen the economy even more so than we've experienced already, and we'll have a more devastating pandemic than we have right now.
Well, thank you. You know, you answered every question. I had like 4 or 5, but you answered them all. Now, you did say that you are anticipating possibility of having more stimulus money going out to individuals. Do you know about how much? Will it still be another $1,200, or is that still in
we don't know what that amount will be. There are various amounts that are being discussed. I heard the figure of $2,000, but of course, that's still in the processing stage. Believe it or not, while Congress has not been in session, every single day we have in our Democratic caucus been on conference calls. Our committees have been meeting. We've been talking with the cabinet secretaries that have jurisdiction over the recovery efforts, over the health efforts, the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, the Secretary of Agriculture. For example, I was talking about what we did. We had the school lunch program, of course, and with kids not going to school, it means that they were not getting the school breakfast, nor were they getting the school meals, the lunches. And so we had to kick in place, and we had to, during the course of our conference calls, fashion waivers so that the Department of Agriculture could waive what they call congregate feeding requirements. In order to get the money for the school lunches, they have to feed them in groups. So we had to get that waived, and then we had to make sure that they could deliver the meals. And so many of the cafeterias across the country are delivering their school meals on a daily basis with the school bus. So they put the meals they prepare the meals, put them on the school bus, and they deliver them, and the kids and the families can get those meals where they would normally get on the school bus. Of course, we've had some issues with that because some of the school workers, some of the bus drivers have been exposed to the virus. And so that interrupted in some places the delivery of those meals. But we've tried to work with that. But that was one of the adjustments that we had to make. And of course, through the discussions that we have some 200 members on conference calls every other day. And then we have the major committees that are meeting via conference call. And of course, we hear from our leadership on the progress of the negotiations with the Senate and with the White House about where we're going. And so I guess I must be spending 6 hours a day on conference calls. And of course, we have the opportunity to question, to have input, and of course, to via electronic devices to send information in, to have questions answered and the like. So it's been a really, really busy experience, and we've had to learn quickly how to take care of the people's business virtually using the new technology. There have been some kinks in it, but we're trying to work through it. And right now, we're dealing with the major issue of how Congress will conduct its business during sheltering in place, because various states are opening up at different time frames, which means that some people will be able to travel, some won't. Some members of Congress have been exposed. Some of them are in the age that makes them vulnerable. And so to travel back to Washington to vote on these measures is going to be very, very risky. And so we're trying to deal with the House rules of the Constitution, our responsibilities to determine how we can take care of the people's business remotely, how we can do whatever we have to do that requires the least amount of risk for people, but does comply with the rules of the House and the requirements of the Constitution. So we may be adjusting our rules at some point to allow for remote voting. Right now, it appears as if the House may be adopting sometime in the next few weeks a rule allowing for proxy voting, so that members who cannot, for one reason or another, get back because of the virus will be able to get a proxy of another member to cast that vote for them when they specifically are able to authorize that vote in writing, so that the House of Representatives clerk will know what the intent of that vote is, and it can be done remotely. But that's very cumbersome. When we were there last week, we had 2 votes, and each of those votes took an hour and 15 minutes to conduct, because in order to do it safely, the House physician and the sergeant at arms had to they worked with our leadership so that the votes could be cast in shifts. So only so many members were able to go to the floor during a certain time frame while that vote was held open. We normally have 15 minutes, but each of the groups, and they were generally alphabetical, which resulted in probably about 10 to 12 members being able to go in during a certain time period to cast your vote and leave the floor. And during the course of debate, members had to go in and conduct the debate. When the debate was finished, they had to wipe everything clean in the House. And after the first vote was completed, that first hour and a half, then they had to go through, clean and sanitize the House floor and everything that could have been touched. Then they called the second vote, and then we had to go through that process all over again. So members were pretty punctual in that, but it took an hour and 15 minutes for each of those votes. So you can see how that slows down the process. And so we've got to figure out a way to get it done and to get it done quickly. So that's what we're up against. But I can assure you that Congress is working, it's working hard, and we're doing our dead level best to discharge our responsibilities to the people of this country. And of course, I owe my allegiance to the people of the 2nd Congressional District of Georgia, and of course, the United States of America. And we're going to do our dead level best to make sure that we get it done in as effectively and as efficiently and as safely as we can possibly do it.
Thank you, Congressman. Now, one more final thing. We know that you represent Albany, and Albany is one of the hottest spots almost in the country. How are they doing?
Well, things are improving to some extent. As you know, we've had probably about 110 deaths as a result of coronavirus in Albany. But the hospital, I work very closely with Phoebe Putney Health Systems. They've done a tremendous job with limited resources. And of course, they've gotten additional resources during the course of the last 8 weeks. And of course, they were able to open a drive-in test site in addition to the test site at the hospital. And the governor and the National Guard were able to discharge a medical unit from the National Guard to Albany, and there is now a testing station that is open to the public to allow testing for people in the public with certain priorities. Of course, healthcare workers, first responders being the highest priority, people in the age level that are vulnerable, people who have certain vulnerabilities, but basically, the desire now is to try to open it up so we have widespread testing so that we can, as I said earlier, be able to separate those people who are infected from those who are not so that we can try to put a tap on that community spread. There was a spike in the number of deaths and hospitalizations. We have seen a decline in Albany, a flattening of that spike in hospitalizations, which is some light at the end of the tunnel. But the death toll continues to climb. And of course, that makes us very, very, very concerned about opening up the economy too soon. The fact that the governor's executive order, which opened the economy, removed the authority of local communities, local city councils, mayors, county commissions to put in place more restrictive measures in order to stop community spread in that community in hotspots such as Albany. The fact that the mayors now cannot do that is very concerning. And of course, they are asking people, even though the governor says you can do it in the interest of your friends, your neighbors, your first responders, the people that we know who are trying to fight this virus and stay healthy, please stay home and shelter in place and go out only if necessary. Follow the CDC guidelines, wash your hands, and wear a mask so that you don't infect anyone and you allow them not to infect you. And that will help all of us because we're all in it together. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and stay safe.
Thank you, Congressman Bishop. We really appreciate you taking this valuable time out of your busy day to meet with us. And we ask that you stay safe, you and your family.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the great job that you're doing in educating the community and keeping them in, because it's so very, very important. So many things are being impacted by this coronavirus. Everything from our health, our economy, and our voting. Voting and the census are extremely important, and both of them are being impacted tremendously by the pandemic. And we have got a real challenge facing us, one, in being counted for the census, because if we're not counted, the numbers that are recorded this year will determine what resources, the $800 billion in resources that are allocated every year, or what we'll get for the next 10 years. So we've got to, one, insist that everybody be counted, that everybody return those census forms, call, return the forms, do it online. And secondly, we've got to make sure that people vote because voting is going to be impacted. People who cannot go to the polls will have to vote absentee. And of course, to the extent that we can, we hope that people will go out and cast their votes because it's so very important. Our political representation will be determined by the census and by our participation. So we want to put people in office who will represent the needs and the interests of our communities. And the only way that we can do that is to vote. Politics is who gets what, when, and how. And it's elected officials that make those decisions. And of course, it's the voters that select those elected officials. And so it's important to vote, and it's important to be counted in the census, and it's important for all of us to be vigilant and to stay safe.
All right. Once again, thank you so much. And again, please be safe.
Thank you.
All right. We've been talking with Sanford Bishop, Congressman Sanford D. Bishop, representing the 2nd Congressional District. Keep it right here. When we return, we'll be talking with Nancy Bourne, the Director of the Muskogee County Elections and We elect Kathy Williams, District 7 for Muskogee County School Board. KathyForTheKids.com. Kathy Williams, for our kids. As a result of COVID-19, the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, postponed the primary election until June 9th. With all politics being local, we asked Nancy Bourne with the Muskogee County Elections and Registration to join us to share what that will mean for the residents of Muskogee County. Hello, Nancy. How you doing? Nancy?
I'm good, Wayne. How are you?
Good. All right. So we're glad that you came on. Got a few questions for you. Can you give us an update on where we stand with the upcoming primary election?
Okay. So as you said earlier, the March 24th presidential primary was moved initially to the May 19th general primary, and that date was subsequently moved to June 9th. So if you have not voted in the presidential primary for March 24th, the ballot that you'll see on June the 9th will contain the presidential candidates, the general primary candidates, the nonpartisan, as well as the east-west for the school district. If you did vote prior to the March 24th postponement, the ballot that you will see will have your general primary candidates, your nonpartisan candidates, and that ballot will be counted on June the 9th. Also, if you voted March 24th, your ballot will be counted again on June the 9th at the same time as the other ballots.
So if we've already voted, are you saying we need to vote again, or we will not need to vote again?
No, if you voted March 24th for the presidential primary,
right,
that only contained the presidential primary candidates and the east-west.
Okay.
So you will need to vote for the general primary, which will be your general primary candidates and your nonpartisan candidates for school board,
okay,
council, judges. So yes, you do need to vote a separate ballot, even though you voted March 24th. That was only the presidential primary.
Okay, another question. Now, I got an absentee ballot form, and I mailed that back in. I have not received the actual ballot. Now, if I've done that, and should I be receiving that ballot soon, or what happens with that?
So current Georgia law says that you begin mailing absentee ballots 45 days before the election. With the postponement, the ballots just started being mailed last week. I think they arrived in the mail starting Saturday this past weekend. So you should be receiving it if you have applied for an absentee ballot.
Okay. Let me ask now, will all of the precinct sites be open? And will you be able to man that?
We ask that, obviously. These are private locations, and they are good enough to let us come and use their facilities as of this date, and realize that it's a constantly changing process. We have all 25 precincts that have committed to allow us to use their facility on June 9th. But again, that is a constantly changing environment that we're working in. But right now, all 25 precinct locations that we are accustomed to having, we will have on June the 9th.
Of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but do you feel comfortable and confident that you'll have enough staff to man all of the precincts?
I feel very comfortable and confident that we will have the staff to man them. We haven't had many of our workers to drop out, and we have a partnership with Carver High School and the students at Carver High School where we pull poll workers, and we had contacted them prior to the March 24th election, advising that we needed more students because we anticipated some of our people would drop out. So we have a great pool of poll workers that we can pull from, so we do not anticipate that being a problem. What we might anticipate a problem about is the 6-foot social distancing rule.
Okay. So now, what precautions will be taken? Of course, a lot of people may do the absentee ballot, but then you have those folks who just want to go to the polls and cast their ballot. So you will have that, evidently, the 6-foot distancing thing. So what other precautions will you have in place?
So yes, we're in the middle of processing absentee applications now, and voters have taken advantage of that ability to ask for an absentee ballot. Right now, we're processing right at 10,000 that we've already sent out. We still have some waiting to be sent out, and we're processing them as quickly as possible. But at the precincts, we will have hand sanitizer, we will have masks. Each piece of equipment will be cleaned after use. We're looking at disposable stylus for you to be able to use that disposable stylus, just you alone. You use the stylus to mark the poll pad, to mark the voting machine, and then you throw it away. And there would not be any human contact with the equipment. We're looking at all of those things to keep not only the voters safe, but our poll workers and our early voting workers, as well as our staff.
Now, I've heard not a story, but I understand there'll be some drop boxes available for those who want to hand deliver their absentee ballots. Is that true?
It is true. We have not officially had the board meeting yet to approve those boxes, but I'm sure that our board will approve us placing collection boxes at various locations over the county. I have ordered 5 collection boxes. Hopefully they will be drive-up boxes, so you won't even have to get out of your vehicle. If you don't want to, you can just drop it in the collection bin. I've also secured sites at several locations, one being the City Services Center, one being the Metro Transfer Station for public transportation, also all of the parks and recreation sites, but we have to pick 5 strategic locations to put those collection bins so that voters can get access to them as easily as possible.
Now, here's a question. You've been involved with election and registration for years. How do you see the virus affecting this particular turnout?
I've been processing a lot of the absentee ballot applications that come in online. In fact, I've been doing most of them exclusively, and I see a lot of people voting for the first time. They might have been registered, since 2012, but I actually see them requesting an absentee ballot this time, where they've not voted before. So I think a lot of different people will be voting, not just your typical older individuals that always turn out, but I think we'll see a greater turnout and a different type of turnout.
Okay. Now, here's a question from one of our people who are watching today. When folks in District 4 go to the polls, there may be some confusion when it comes to selecting their city council representative. I understand that. Can you clarify what they can expect and why there may be some confusion?
Yes. So our charter says that if there's a vacancy in a council seat, then that vacancy has to be filled if there's only a certain amount of time left for that council seat. And that happened when Councilor Turner Pugh retired from her location. So we will have a special election to fill the remainder of that term, which is May. Well, now it's going to be June, sorry. June 9th until December of this year. And then the regular election for the 4-year term for Council District 4. So when you get your ballot, if you are in Council District 4, you'll see that Council District 4 and then a special election for the remainder of the Council District 4 term. There are 2 candidates for the 4-year term, and there are 3 candidates for the 6-month term.
All right. Well, I know you've had your work cut out for you prior to this pandemic. The main problem was getting people to understand there was a new machine that's going to be used. Now, on top of that, we have to worry about being safe when we come to that. But I think you've done a great job of getting that information out. A lot of churches have had you in, and so people know how to use machines now, I think. The key now is just being safe if we come to the polls.
That's right. And hopefully we can provide that piece of paper for you. If you don't feel comfortable coming to the poll, you can get that piece of paper that's a ballot, and you'll be able to return it without any postage once we get the collection bins established so that you can drop them off.
Great. Well, as always, I want to thank you, Nancy. You have always made yourself available to us, and I hope our viewers are feeling better armed as to what they can expect when early voting starts and come June 9th. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. This is my message to our graduates through my view from the pew. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back. My dear seniors, I realize COVID-19 has put a real damper on your senior year. But in spite of not being able to have a prom or celebrating your accomplishments with your friends, I still say congratulations. In a few weeks, you will be able to say you've made it. I remember when I graduated from high school. Armed with my official record of graduation, I was off to rule the world, believing that the world was my oyster, and all I had to do was show people my diploma, and it would open right up. I had no earthly idea how hard that oyster would be to open. For the record, I'm the type of person, if you tell me the stove is hot, I'm going to take your word and not touch it. With that being said, please allow me to share with you some things about life I learned the hard way, but I wish someone had told me when I was just graduating. You can take my advice or leave it. It's entirely up to you. Advice number 1, life ain't no dress rehearsal. You can't push a button and think you can do it over. You will make mistakes, so don't whine about them. Learn from them. Number 2, your school or the youth sports programs you participated in may have done away with winners and losers, but life has not. In some schools, they've abolished failing grades, and they'll give you as many times as you want to get the right answer. In some youth sports programs, there are no winners and losers, and everyone gets a damn trophy. This doesn't bear the slightest resemblance to anything in real life. In real life, there are winners and there are losers. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, which leads me to advice number 3. Life ain't fair. Get used to it. Number 4, life is not divided into semesters. You don't get summers off, and very few employers are interested in helping you find yourself. Do that on your own time. Number 5, if you think your teacher is tough, wait till you get a boss. Number 6, you will not make $60,000 a year right out of high school. You won't be vice president with an expense account until you earn it. Number 7, a degree does not automatically get you a job. There is nothing wrong with working for free in order to get some real life experience. Number 8, flipping burgers should not be beneath your dignity. Your grandparents had a different word for it. They called it opportunity. Number 9, the world doesn't care about your self-esteem. This world will expect you to accomplish something before you feel good about yourself. Number 10, you will have a greater appreciation and respect for your parents when you are responsible for your own damn clothes, your own groceries, your own insurance, your own car note, your own rent, and your own furniture. Number 11, you will wish you were nicer to the nerds in your school. Chances are you will end up working for them. Number 12, Don't make a permanent decision based on a temporary situation. I'm serious. Times are going to be tough. You will face adversity, and there will be times when you will wonder how you will be able to make ends meet. That guy or that girl you thought was the love of your life might disappoint or even leave. Please believe when I tell you, it won't be the end of the world. Never give up and never give up. Your life is too important to just end. Number 13, it's not always about racism. As graduates entering the world, you need to be aware of the minefields that await you and the stereotypes and perceptions you can't feed into if you want to move forward in life. There is a level of racism that we all have to overcome, but that doesn't mean that every single issue is race-related. Sometimes it's about how you represent yourself. Sometimes it's about how you present yourself. Not being hired may have absolutely nothing to do with the color of your skin, but rather the way you came to the interview inappropriately dressed. Not being hired may have absolutely more to do with you not having command of the English language instead of answering the interviewer's question with street slang. Number 14, find your passion and you'll find your paycheck. If you can find something you would wake up every day and do it for free, that should be your career. And number 15, pray daily, the most important rule of all. Give it to him and he will give it back to you like you will never believe. Now, whether you take my advice or not is totally up to you. I still offer my congratulations and wish you a great and wonderful life. After all, the world really is your oyster. I'm Wayne A. Hales, and this has been my view from a pew. Well, that's our show for this week. I want to thank my guest, Nancy Boren, with the Muskogee County Elections and Registration, Pamela Kirkland with the West Central Georgia Health District, and Congressman Sanford D. Bishop, representing the 2nd Congressional District. We also want to thank our sponsors for today, Senator Ed Harbison from the campaign to re-elect Ed Harbison and to Senate District 15, and Greg Countryman, candidate for Sheriff of Muskogee County. Join us next week when we talk with State Representative Calvin Smyrie, who was recently appointed to the Governor's COVID-19 Task Force, Muskogee County School Board candidates for District 7, incumbent Kathy Williams, and her challenger, Dr. Walter Taylor Jr. We will also speak with City Manager Isaiah Hughley about the recent controversy surrounding the Liberty District. Until next time, I'm Wayne A. Hales. I hope you've been informed, inspired, or empowered. See you next week on CEL TV. Today's program is being sponsored by Senator Ed Harbison, re-elect Ed Harbison, Senate District 15, and Greg Countryman, candidate for Sheriff of Muskogee County.
Inspirational, informative, empowering. Introducing CEL TV, the Courier Echo Latino newspaper's new network, offering exciting and relevant programming, featuring Politically Speaking in Black and Brown with Dominic Perkins, On the Scene with Nadine, Money in Business with Carl Brown, Extraordinary Intentions with Jonathan Rivers, Ask a Lawyer with Katanga Wright, Legislative Updates with State Representative Carolyn Hughley, K-PASA with Tanya Batchelor, and of course, A View from a Pew with Wayne A. Hales, and so much more. It's all available on demand exclusively, broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and our website, couriernews.org.